And Matty's work suggests about healing requires compassion, self-awareness, and reconnection. And that's one of the ways that we do that through Berry Street is you understand where the children are at developmentally and teaching them through self-regulation, through emotional regulation, through connection, different ways to support them. And I guess one of the foundations that we do that is it's rooted in the idea that you need to have strong relationships with your children.
Hello and welcome to Blooming Curious, the podcast dedicated to reimagining early childhood education through the power of curiosity. We explore the strategies that inspire a lifelong love for learning in children. So if you're an educator or a curious parent looking for creative, meaningful ways to engage children and move beyond the talk and chalk traditional classroom approach, then this is the podcast for you. Today on Blooming Curious, we welcome Shana Roberts of Nurture, Connect, Play and the Talk and Coffee podcast. Shana is a mum, author, educator, and podcast host. She helps educators and parents build deeper connections with children and helps them navigate difficult situations and big emotions. Welcome to Blooming Curious, Shana. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to sit down and chat with you more.
I always say to people, although I hate technology, I love technology in that it helps you connect with people from all over the world so easily. This would never have happened in days gone by. So we have to thank technology for these connections we can make. So that's really cool. So Shana, you are very busy juggling teaching, being a mum, an author, and a podcast host. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to creating your website and Talk and Coffee, your podcast.
Absolutely. Well, I began in education about 20 years ago. Before I began my study to become a teacher, I was first an SSO. So in South Australia, that's a school services officer who supports children within the classroom and different roles within the school. And I wanted to do that to give me a really great foundation of understanding how a school works and I guess develop more connections with students. And I wanted to do that first before I went and did my teaching degree. So it was really great having the experience, which helped me to understand more of what they were teaching us at university, because I think hands-on experience is, I guess, a better way to understand and learn things than just through textbooks. So that's how I began working with children. And then from there, I've worked in education as a teacher for around 13 years. And I've been lucky to have been at the same school for the last approximately 10 to 11 years. And within that, it's a very complex site with children from a range of different backgrounds, quite often with trauma or disadvantage. So it's very eye-opening and I think makes myself and others who I work with better educators, because we have to have more understanding, more support, more connection with the students. And from all of that, and then having my own child, I then developed my own business, which first started out as Wild and Free Publishing, which I still have. And through there, I've published my books and more that are coming. But I wanted to also do something different. So have a space that was, somewhere people could go to find resources or just kind of learn about child development, ways that they can interact and support their children to thrive. And that's when Nurture, Connect, Play was born.
It's amazing. And I think especially now with everything that's changing in the world, we're becoming quite a technological world, this modern world of ours. And I think I see a lot of disconnect in the world now. So I think something that you're doing is just amazing, helping people to have better connections with their children, because I see a lot of disconnect. I was teaching health as a specialist subject for a while, and that has a lot to do with making friends and just issues around the way children feel, their
Yeah.
emotions and how to deal with emotions. And when kids start opening up and they start talking to you about that, you realize very quickly that it's not just friendship issues that they have, but they also don't feel heard at home. And that's something that was very eye-opening for me. So you can imagine, because I think of our busy lives, perhaps people are so busy that they forgetting to connect with their children, that it's not just about providing all the physical stuff for your child, but also about providing and having that connection with children that's so important. Now, Shana, you've touched on trauma here, and I know that you say that you're a trauma-informed educator. What does that mean? And can you share with us how that has helped you to help children thrive?
Absolutely. There are so many different frameworks that support teachers to become a trauma-informed educator. And one of the ways that I was really lucky through my site to do that was to be trained through the Berry Street education model. Because we know that trauma impacts on children in different ways, and in turn, it affects their development and learning. So by understanding more about the whole child, I think it sets educators up to enable the school and learning space to really support them and help them in their educational, but the social emotional development as well. So before I became trained through the Berry Street, I really resonated with the idea that Gabor Mate suggests about trauma and how it has the lasting impact on people, because we know that trauma can lead to reduced cognitive ability, difficulty with memory and concentration, language delays, but also really impacts the social and friendship issues, as you say, that you also taught through your health specialist role. And I used to see that every day within my classroom, and students would struggle with all of those areas and also from the impacts within their own home lives. So having this extra training assisted us within, especially my site and others that I know of, to set up a more nurturing environment with specific strategies and supports we could use to support the students. So education and understanding more about their body and what is happening when they're faced with difficult situations. And Mate's work suggests about healing requires compassion, self-awareness, and reconnection. And that's one of the ways that we do that through Berry Street is you understand where the children are at developmentally and teaching them through self-regulation, through emotional regulation, through connection, different ways to support them. And I guess one of the foundations that we do that is it's rooted in the idea that you need to have strong relationships with your children. So connection is one, understanding who they are, seeing them as a whole person, that sometimes the behaviors they represent, it's not about them, it's not about us, it's just a sign of something else going on underneath. So teaching them how to de-escalate, self-regulation, looking at the factors that their body is doing, understanding what their triggers are, what kind of, if they display the fight, flight, freeze symptoms, and how you can set up your entire classroom to support that is a really great education model and one that I highly recommend that any educators willing to go and do to investigate and learn about.
And this is something that so many of us now in schools all over have classrooms with children with diverse needs. And
Absolutely.
I wonder if you could just give us one. You talked about these strategies that you're using, that you've learned through Berry Street. And I was just thinking about dysregulation. Dysregulation is such a massive one now. We're seeing more and more children with diverse needs. And often I think dysregulation is something that happens. Could you give one example of how you would deal, or a tip for a teacher or even a parent listening, how you could deal with a child who is dysregulated? What is your advice when it comes to that?
I think not taking it personally and always having positive regard. So Dr. Daniel Siegel talks about the whole brain and the hand model. So when the kids might flip their lid and they're in that state of being highly dysregulated, they're not able to take in and understand what you're saying. So using less words and sometimes just being physically present, less verbal interactions is a great way to support the children, helping them de-escalate, because they're going to feed off your energy. If you're calm, if you're present and there with them, it helps them to sometimes de-escalate quicker. But it also just depends on each individual child as how you would tackle that. Sometimes they might want you closer. Sometimes for your own safety, you might need to be further away. I guess sometimes a lot of the kids I work with too, when they perceive they are in a stressful situation, that's when they have that sometimes intense reaction. So feeling like they have an exit, so not blocking the doorway, letting them feel like they have an out is a great way. So being in a position where you are safe yourself, because you have to always keep yourself safe first, but still being where you are with the child, supporting them safely. If it was in my classroom, if the children needed to evacuate, I'd always get them out first, stand in a spot near the door, but not near the child where they felt threatened. I think things like that are a great way. Same as if it's your child at home. Physical presence, you could be close to them, you could be further away, but when you can start to see them de-escalate is when you might begin to interact more and start to get close to them if it's safe.
I guess, and sometimes it just takes time, like you said, you know,
absolutely.
to give them time and just be there, but not let them feel threatened in any way, that they still feel that they have an exit, as you said. And it's really difficult now having all these different situations that we as teachers have to deal with. But I think it's really important because we didn't learn all of this stuff at university, you know. So going on courses like you did with Berry Street or listening to podcast episodes like this can really help educators think about possible students or parents that they have and give them some tips and strategies that they can use to deal with these situations, because it is becoming more and more prevalent. Shana, tell me, what do you believe is the most important elements for fostering this connection between children and their caregivers or educators?
That's a really great question. I think connection is super important. To me, I think there's a lot of things that can develop and are important to build that connection. I think one of the things is respect. As a teacher, I always treated my students with respect. I didn't demand it back. Once I modeled how I treated them, how I saw them, that aided in me developing really strong connections with all of my students. That would be things like asking their permission to look in their books or write in their books, because I view them as it's theirs. I would like to use it. I'm just trying to model it in a different way. If I wanted to borrow something else of theirs, the same as if they wanted to borrow something of mine within the classroom. I think besides respect, being really present and giving your full attention is a great one, because I can do this as a teacher and as a parent. Technology is so prevalent within our world, as we were talking about before, and it has such an impact. So putting phones away, even for 5 minutes, if that's all you can fit into your schedule, that's okay. But then your child or students know that you are really focused on them and getting to know them, talking with them, just spending time with them. So for me, I think, respect, time, focus, and being really present are really important to develop strong connections.
I think you've nailed that. It is being present. So many of the children that I've spoken to, one of their biggest gripes is that their parents don't listen to them. And when I say, what do you mean they don't listen to you? Oh, no, because my mom's always on her phone. And this is gospel truth, exactly what children have shared with me. They don't feel listened to.
Yeah.
And therefore, they don't feel respected because you are not giving them your full attention. Now, of course, we've got things to do. You've got to cook, you've got to do whatever. So you can't give a child 100% full attention 100% of the time. But I think when those moments when you're actually interacting with someone, that's important to put your phone away. And I think Simon Sinek had something on social media where he put the phone in his hand. And the minute you have the phone in your hand, the person that you're speaking to feels a little bit less because they feel that they are not the most important person at the moment because you're more concerned with the message on your phone, right? Or whatever's going on your phone. So that is crucial. I think that's really important, what you've just said there.
I also think that purposeful language is really important. So how you are communicating things.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're saying, you're not able to focus on your child 100% of the time. That's okay. But communicating when you can and when you have the time, making sure they understand that. So even with my child, I might say to them, I have 5 minutes available before I need to go and do X, Y, and Z. Let's play together for that time. And then when I'm there, I'm really focused, I'm really present. When I'm needing to go and if it's a meeting, get ready for work, letting them know. And it makes a lot of the transition smoother because they understand and know what you're doing and why, because you have clearly communicated that with them.
And that just rang a bell for me, Shana. I remember when my kids, I learned this so many years ago, and I remember when my boys were little, one of the things they said was, let's say your kids are playing, and all of a sudden you've got to go, right, stop everything, we got to go. And that just causes what the, we are busy playing, and then you get that whole tantrum or whatever. Apparently the best thing to do is to warn them. So in 10 minutes time, guys, we're going to be doing this and this and that, and I need you to be ready, start packing up or whatever it is, because in 10 minutes we're going. And then in 5 minutes you give them another warning. It's 5 minutes to go, right, start doing this now, start doing that. And I think that even in a classroom, that's important, is to warn children that at this time, this is what's happening and this is what we'll be doing. And I have found that when you do that in the classroom, the kids become real sticklers. Like, Mrs. Coutinho, don't forget, it's now 10 o'clock and we have to do this and this and this. I'm going, great, thanks for reminding me.
Which is funny.
They would be really, if you warn them before and tell them what's going to be happening, boy, they're so ready. Oh, yeah, 10 o'clock. You said this is going to happen, so it's happening,
Because I know, as we say, there's such diverse needs and abilities within the classroom. So I used to love having the visual timer on the board so they knew each lesson of the day, what times and pictures, so they knew what was coming, talking about it in the mornings so they knew what was happening when. But one of the things I really loved was I had a clock and you could turn it so it would count down and it would block the time out in cover it in a red cover, and it just had a battery in it. So when it got to 10 or 5 minutes, I would give them the warnings, but they also had the visual there so they could also learn to self-regulate. So that was another great classroom strategy. And boy, did they all love, can we set the timer? And if the timer went off and I didn't hear it, they were the ones who reminded me.
I know. So I think just these warnings, right? This is a great way to prevent escalation in children, because it also gives them a little bit of power, right? Because they know now that this is what's going to be happening and they have to be ready. And I found that it works very, very well with children. That is a very good strategy, and I hope a lot of people take that on board.
Another thing I really find useful with my child as well is not just giving them the power, giving them the choice, feeling like they're in control of part of the situation is a really useful strategy. And I give him the warning, but sometimes when they're very young, they don't understand concepts of time. So I do find ahead of time, 5 or 10 minutes, we need to leave in the car in 5 minutes. I still say it to him because it's getting him used to concepts of time and things like that. But what would you like to bring with you in the car? And quite often then they'll choose things they want to take with them. Okay, are you hopping in the car or would you like me to help you? Giving them the option first. And then it just makes that transition a lot smoother, as you say.
Yeah, and it does give them the choice as well,
Yeah.
Do you want to get in by yourself or shall I help you in? So
Yeah.
that also has this little bit of effect of giving them some agency because you're giving them an option,
That's right.
Both ways you get what you want, but they feel like they have a little bit of control, which is amazing. As we've already spoken about that there are children today in this fast-paced world of ours, that I think a lot of adults struggle to connect with children. We've already spoken about some of the strategies that they can use, but do you think there's anything else if someone's feeling quite disconnected from their child? What is that they can do? And it happens with classrooms and it happens in family. Adults sometimes they have this feeling that they're not connecting with their child or with their student. Do you have any advice for that, how they can build that connection again, apart from just trying to be present and listening? Or is that just the best thing?
I think that's part of it, but I also think having fun. So being present, putting technology away, if that's one of the factors that's contributing to you feeling disconnected, pop it away, have fun, play games, be silly, tell jokes, have a dance party in the kitchen.
Great.
That releases all the positive endorphins and that helps drive connection as well. So doing things like that, have a racing game, go on the trampoline, anything that helps you to have fun with your child and just enjoy each other's company.
I love that. We need a bit more fun in our lives.
We can never have enough.
Children love fun. I mean, that's their big thing. How was your day? Oh, it was so fun. They love that. If it was just fun, that's all they need, just to have fun. So if you can bring that into your life, I think that's half the battle, probably most of the battle won,
Absolutely.
So that's amazing advice there. Shana, lately, we hear a lot about it on social media as well, is that children are very much lacking often in resilience.
Yeah.
What do you see the connection between resilience, or is there a connection between resilience and connection with caregivers? Does this connection and resilience, does it play a role in children having better resilience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it does. I think child development always comes down to connection and the relationship they have with the people closest to them. I think developing resilience and having an understanding of emotional intelligence, the basic things of what we've talked about, assisting children to regulate, understanding that they're going to come across difficult situations, being okay with feeling uncomfortable and helping guide them through those different challenges is big. I know that my child struggles with that, but a lot of modeling, I think, helps them to develop those skills. So when you're faced with adversity and how you regulate yourself, the language you use. So even if for example, what did I do the other day? I lost my car keys again, which is quite regular.
It's a sign of stress.
Yeah. Oh, I've lost my keys again. I'm feeling really annoyed, frustrated. Okay, that's okay. I'm going to think about where I last saw them. Okay, where can I look first? And just having that conversation with my son, and he's like, the couch. Oh, that's a great idea. So now he's starting to help me. So we would go and check the couch. Oh, they're not here. Okay, I might go and check my bag. Ah, we found them. Amazing. Now we can go. But it was just me doing that, modeling, I guess, how I felt, talking through the situation. And now he's starting to do the same. With bigger situations, he's seen me become upset. He's seen me cry. And a lot of the time we practice skills when he's regulated.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a great thing. So when I can do it, but he's also starting to naturally do it himself now, stamping his foot, curling his hands up into a fist. If something happens that he's not happy with, he doesn't like, they're always going to have those situations, but it's just helping him to navigate them a little bit easier. And now he's quicker to respond with, oh, okay, he's becoming more resilient because he's having that natural exposure and modeling from other people.
Yeah, modeling is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because everything that we do and say and not do and not say, children pick up on those cues.
Yeah.
So I think modeling is absolutely crucial when it comes to teaching kids how to navigate life and even how to learn. It's like that whole explicit instruction. You have to actually show children how to do it. And I find that you've got to show them how to behave and how to handle situations. It's up to us. We are the North Star, so to speak, to help children learn and deal with all their issues and frustrations, because they don't know, they don't have those skills yet. We actually have to teach it to them as adults. And the problem comes is if we ourselves don't know how to deal with our own issues and our own dysregulation. So I think very often we have to learn how to regulate ourselves first so that we can then teach that to children. And I just interviewed some guests a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking exactly about that, about how we as adults have to first learn those skills for ourselves so that we can teach the children. Because so often, I think so many of us, especially of a certain generation, we never learned how to regulate ourselves, you know. In my day, it was always children are seen and not heard.
Yeah.
So we never learned how do you regulate yourself? No, well, if you've got a problem, you just scream and shout, right? And that's just not helpful to anybody. So we really have to learn those skills. I think that's really very good advice.
And I think being very self-aware within yourself and learning to tune into your own body helps you become able to regulate, I guess, easier. And it's a skill that, you know, you learn as you go. And it's one everyone can learn, and it's one everyone can learn to manage in different ways. I guess one of the things that I think helps my son to become more resilient is, since becoming a parent, I've had a bit of a lens shift, so to speak. So thinking about what I can do to help him be successful and set him up for success in all areas of his life. And one of the ways is by doing the modeling, making sure I'm very conscious of what I'm saying, what I'm doing with my actions, because everything, as we say, is picked up by them.
Shana, if you could give one piece of advice to parents and educators about building connections with children, what would it be?
I think if I could give one piece of advice would be to slow down, slower than you think. Things with children, they take a long time to process, but just by allowing enough time to do things. You know, the world at the moment is so fast paced. So taking the time to slow down, to really connect, to really engage, even if it's the routine of getting in the car when appropriate. So not when you have to rush off to work, but slowing down, doing things together, allowing your kids the opportunity to have a bit of a say in what they're doing and how it's happening, with things like we were talking about before, hopping in the car, giving them the space to try and do it first before you step in and say, would you like to hop in, or would you like to help me if they're struggling a little bit? I think it's a really great way, and it helps to, I guess, lay the foundation to connect, to build respect, to have those situations where you can model things for them to learn, to help with regulation, to build resilience. Everything it's very layered. So once you start with the basic, develop the connection, develop the great relationship with each other, then you can start to do all of these other parts.
You know, just thinking as you was talking there, when you rush kids, and I think very often as a teacher, you see kids come in the morning sometimes and they're all over the place. And I think that often, if I think back to my time, when my kids were little, I think that comes from a rush in the mornings. Hurry up, we're late, where are your things, your school bag, your lunch, da-da-da-da-da. And I think that just whips everybody up into a frenzy.
Yeah.
And so I think that's wonderful advice, is just to slow down. And so I've trained my kids since they were little. The night before, you put out your uniform, you put out your school bag, you pack your bag, you put in your homework, you get yourself organized, right? So that in the morning, there isn't this big rush, which just gets everybody frazzled. And then by the time the kids come to school, the child's already crying and they're already, heightened and dysregulated. because things have just been so chaotic in the morning. So I think that piece of advice to slow down is really, really, really valuable for everybody. And I think it helps us too, if you slow
it does.
down, it's so much better to start your day in a nice, calm, even keeled way than to be all rushed and chomping at the bit and everybody hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And that, I don't think that's really a great way for anybody to start the day. So thank you for that.
That's okay. And I think people forget sometimes that a lot of adults expect the same of children that they would of other adults, and they forget that they're younger and still developing. And I myself hate it when I start the day feeling dysregulated. And most of the time it has nothing to do with my son. It's just other things that have happened. So grounding myself and making sure within our morning routine, I allow enough time for us to connect first before we do anything. Organising myself the night before, as you did with your children, it all just helps most days for them to start positive, calm, and connected, which to me, as you say, it lays the way for the day to be more pleasant.
Yes. Shana, I think we're coming to the end, but I wanted to talk to you now about your job or your role as an author. You have published books, which I am just so in awe of. Tell us a little bit about your books and how do they fit into this whole thing with connection with children?
Absolutely. Well, I found since having my child, it just spurred a lot of creativity, and it's been such a fun journey learning all about publishing and how to go about it. But my first book, Mama, I See You, kind of supports the child-parent relationship when the child is newborn. It's kind of like as someone said to me once, a snapshot of a really special moment in time when you are your baby's entire world. So in the middle of the night, one night, it just popped into my head. And from there, I ended up with the lovely story. I loved that time. It was, to me, magical, also tricky, as we have lots of things, middle of the night wake-ups and feeds, but I still loved it. I also wanted to make sure I created a bottle feeding version because relationships and connections with mothers and children can still be developed. It doesn't just depend on breastfeeding. So that was really important for me to have that representation. And I think the amazing illustrations within the book really reflect what I was trying to convey, because the whole point of starting the book was to create books that support connection but are created with heart. So they're created with the idea of relationships are special and how we can support that, which kind of led me into my second book, which was called Don't Go. And it's about Joey, the koala, and how he faces separation anxiety and how his mum supports him through this challenging situation and uses strategies such as their close bond, reassurance, self-regulation by co-regulating with her. And it's a lovely little book, and there's some things I do in there with my own child that kind of were the foundation for this story to be written. And I love the little illustrations, and I love how I used the animals, because that's a great way for kids to understand storytelling as well. And I have more in the works, but time is a factor, being really busy. So I'm trying to do these well and trying to take my time to create resources that support these books for educators and families to use with their children.
Amazing. Just again, as you speak, I think of my own life really. And I was thinking about when my children, who are now 23 and 24, when they were babies.
Yeah.
And feeding them, I was so lucky is that I did not have a phone. And those times of feeding them, first breast and then bottle, I would always, of course, even with the bottle, hold them, feeding them. And I just remember staring at these beautiful little faces and noticing every day the little eyebrows coming out and little lashes getting longer. And it was such a magical, magical time for me. And I wouldn't change that for anything. And I often now, I sometimes see, and it's not a judgment. It was just comparing it to myself. Is that just
Yeah.
what an amazing time it was. Such a connection. And I had no distraction. I was in the moment with my child. And I see young mums and they're feeding, but they're also on their phones. And I think to myself, it's such a missed opportunity. It's so wonderful that just that simplicity of being in the moment. It's like when you're creating a work of art and it's just you and the medium. It's a type of therapy and you're not spreading yourself thin. You are just in that moment. And I think it's such a healthy way for us to be as well, especially when you're parenting. It can be so fraught. You're not getting enough sleep. There's so many demands, they're crying. And then you get these special moments of silence when they're feeding. And it's just this moment where you and your child can just be. And I used to absolutely love those moments. That's a treasure. So if anybody out here is listening and you're a young mum, put away your phone and just be in the moment, because not just for the child, but for you too. I think it's always something so powerful that stayed with me. Shana, before we go, what impact do you hope that your work that you're doing with your books, that you're doing in your school, what's your hope that your work, the impact it'll leave on the way children are nurtured and taught for the future?
I guess for me, it's rooted in why I became a teacher in the first place, trying to make the world a better place, even if it's one child, because it's that ripple effect. It's their self-belief, how they view others, their relationship with others. For a short period of time, you develop such a close bond with the children you teach. And I think that's really powerful. And I hope that everything I'm doing can have the impact, or it has the ability to support one child to feel like they are seen and that they are valued. And I hope it has that impact within my own child as well.
I'm sure it does, because I can see that you are such a gentle, loving person and such a creative person. And I'm sure that your gentleness really impacts your own child and those that you work with. So I think everything you're doing is leaving such a valuable legacy for all the children. So I thank you on behalf of everybody and all the people's children that you deal with.
Thank you very much.
Sometimes parents are often so busy that you sometimes forget to say thank you. And I think everything that you're doing is really, really powerful. So well done and congratulations on your books, which is just amazing.
Thank you so much.
So Shana, thanks so much for being on Blooming Curious today. I think it's been a wonderful conversation, and one that I really hope touches the lives and hearts of so many people listening. So thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to chatting with you again.
So that was Shana Roberts. And listen, if you enjoyed this episode today, could you do me a favor? Please click that share button and share it with a colleague or friend or parent, so that we can get this message that we have on Blooming Curious out to a lot more people. Until next week, I'll see you again next time, same place. See you around.